That's right, 1700 South Lee Highway. Can It Recycling, as well as mobile recycling service for your commercial business. They'll pick it up, they'll weigh it, and they'll pay it. That's right. Tell a friend to Can It.
Tell a friend to Can It.
Give them a call, 472-6501. Check out their website at can-it recycling.com for the best prices in town, and they'll quote your price and hold it for 48 hours.
Tell a friend to Can It.
Can It Recycling.
Tired of carrying around cash in your pocket and tired of banks? Visit usmoneycard.com and get your prepaid debit card to use wherever MasterCard is accepted. It's a smart and safe alternative to carrying cash, and it's convenient. Even if you have a bill that requires a check, US Money Card has that too. Visit usmoneycard.com today and find out how to get your reloadable prepaid debit card. Log on, load up, and love your US Money Card. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years.
Good morning, everyone. This is Listen In on WOOP FM.
You have questions, we have the answers.
At 99.9 FM and on the internet at WOOPFM.com. And I've got a noise in my ear and I'm trying to get rid of it. Anyway, this is, I'm David Davis. You're listening to Listen In, and we have with, and I have with me my radio partner, Angela Miner.
Good morning, David.
Good morning. I'm off to an auspicious start.
We're wonderful.
So we have with us our guests today, Barbara Gilbert and State Representative Kevin Brooks. We're going to be talking about 4 amendments that are going to be coming up on the November ballot, amendments to the Tennessee Constitution. Barbara is going to be talking about amendment number 1 in particular. It has to do with abortion. And Kevin is, I hope, going to talk about the other 3, amendments 2, 3, and 4, that deal with
everything else.
Everything else. But anyway, judicial selection and income tax and gambling in certain situations for veterans organizations. So, Angela, you want to say hello?
Sure. Yes. Hello to our guests and hello to our listeners. If you don't mind, David, I would like to hear from Miss Barbara and Kevin if they would introduce themselves and tell a little about yourselves.
My pleasure. This is Barbara Gilbert, and I am representing Amendment 1. David asked how did I get into this position, or actually into this hot seat this morning, and it became a very joyous way. I became a grandmother. We have waited about 11 years to be grandparents in my home, and the Lord blessed us with a sweet baby last year, and that was by adoption. And going through that process, we learned that this little boy could have been one of the statistics. And so, having been made a new grandmother, you know how doors open to you. And so a door was open when I first understood that there was an amendment coming up on the ballot this November that really needed my focus and my attention, but also my energy. And I was approached by the statewide campaign called Yes on One and accepted to be their volunteer coordinator for Bradley County. And David Davis so kindly invited me to come and speak. So here I am, hoping to share with you some information. So
are these the hot seats, Barbara?
These are the hot seats.
Welcome.
Actually, yours has a donut, but mine doesn't.
Mine not as hot as it used to be.
Let me rephrase that. The donut is not on the seat.
That's right. Not anymore.
So that's who I am, and I hope to be able to share with the listening audience some information so you can make a sound choice when you approach the polls in November and vote, hopefully, yes on one. Now, Kevin.
Thank you.
You're
My
welcome.
friend Barbara. Actually, I'm gonna have to take some editorial license here. Barbara is not giving herself enough credit. She has actually been, for as long as I have known her, a champion for conservative causes in Bradley County. This is just one of many things that Barbara Gilbert has led the charge. Those of us who serve, and I'm honored that I am able to serve my neighbors here in Bradley County, but those of us in office, you know that email very, very well, because Barbara and her family have been on really the tip of the sword on right conservative issues in our county, whether it's taxes or spending or government intervention in our lives or groundhogs or anything. It runs the gamut of her action and her willingness to stand up. It's admirable, and I actually get a very small amount of reimbursement for my service. Barbara does this because it's the right thing to do, and there's a big difference in that in public service and then volunteer service. And Barbara's a champion. I'm thrilled that she's taken the helm in Bradley County on Yes on One, something that I'm also very committed to.
Indeed.
The man who the organization who pays my mortgage, the Church of God, has passed a resolution in support of Yes on One. There are four constitutional amendments. One of them is budget amendment related, the income tax one, but I'm also very committed to Yes on One. My name's Kevin Brooks. Miss Miner, thank you so much for allowing me to introduce myself. I'm glad to be here with Captain Davis, and we'll talk about why I call him Captain Davis in a little bit. But I'm thrilled that you guys asked me to stop by and talk about the other three constitutional amendments. Those are Amendment number 2, which empowers the governor to appoint judges subject to the confirmation of the General Assembly. A little bit of a different way than we're doing it now. Number 3 prohibits the legislature from levying or permitting any tax on payroll or earned personal income forever. That's commonly known as no state income tax amendment. And then the fourth and final empowers the legislature to permit lotteries for events that benefit 501c3s and C9s. That is directly related to veterans organizations. I do not expect that to have any problems as it goes through the process. I think the biggest obstacle, or the biggest opportunity, we should say, is the importance of Bradley Countyans getting out and voting on these issues, because it takes 50% plus one of the people that vote in the governor's race to pass any of these. Whether it's vote yes on one or 2, 3, or 4, you've got to have that percentage of participation or these go away. And we can talk about that in just a little bit. That was too long of an introduction.
No, that was terrific.
No, that was fine.
You've had a
But-
length of service, so you deserve a longer
Well,
introduction.
I figure the less I talk, the better it's going to be.
Less is more. Is that what this is?
That's it.
Okay.
But just in case no one knows, Barbara is also the reason that we have all of these white crosses
That's exactly
in
right.
everybody's yard. She's responsible for starting that, and I even have one in my front yard.
Yet
Thank you.
another example of her volunteerism. She epitomizes our nickname, the Volunteer State.
Yes, she really does.
And the crosses epitomize the city with spirit.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, use it in my introduction, but I get tongue-tied on that intro.
That's-
But
you did good, David.
anyway, so tell me, what does Amendment 1 do specifically?
Specifically, Amendment 1 is in place to first restore the Tennessee Constitution, the state constitution. Back in 2000, the Tennessee Supreme judges, 4 of the 5 sitting judges at that time, found a broader right to privacy in their interpretation of the Tennessee Constitution. and they assigned that as a right to abortion. Because of that ruling, policies that were already in place, that the citizens of Tennessee had voted and were in place through the legislation process, were struck down, leaving Tennessee pretty much unregulated and open borders for abortion. So Amendment 1 is in place. It is coming as a constitutional amendment because the way the judges wrote the ruling, the only way that our legislators have a way of putting common sense policies back into our abortion practices is by a constitutional amendment. If our legislators were to pass a common sense policy, it would be ruled unconstitutional because of the way it was ruled in 2000. So the first thing that this amendment does, it restores our Tennessee Constitution back to its original state. It still permits abortion, but it doesn't identify abortion as a specific right. The second thing, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, does it? I think Roe versus Wade, it still allows abortions in the first trimester, and then the state has in the second and third trimesters, the state has specific rights as far as limiting or curbing abortion.
That's correct, but it also gives even a broader understanding when you set aside an act as a right, that further extends even what is perceived under the U.S. Constitution under Roe versus Wade. So
That's right. It goes farther.
It goes further, yes. That even if Roe versus Wade would be overturned tomorrow, abortion would not be a criminal act in Tennessee. So refocusing, one of the things that the amendment does, it restores our Tennessee Constitution back to its original form. Many times you'll hear the term, it neutralizes our Constitution. The second thing it does, and probably most important, is it allows protective policies to be put in place. Right now, as I said previously, the way the ruling was written, it has disallowed our legislature to take any action and make any type of protective policy for the safety and well-being of not only the expectant mother, but also the unborn child and the whole process. We had policies that were put in place by the voting public before 2000 that asked for a waiting period, a brief waiting period. It asked for informed consent, and it also asked for inspections and licensing of our clinics. We have none of that. None of that is mandated or required in our state as of this 2000 ruling.
Abortion in Tennessee has gone down, but you mentioned that it leaves our borders open because we have more people coming in from out of state for abortions?
That's absolutely correct. And why is that? It is because we are unregulated, and the other states, the other 8 states surrounding us, have these what we'll call common sense regulations. So a typical year, average abortions in Tennessee number around 17,000, of which 25% are from out of state. We do not require a waiting period. We do not require licensing or inspections or any kind of regulation to any of our clinics. We do not have requirement of hospitalization affiliation should we have an at-risk abortion or we have any other difficulties.
Now, we don't have, in East Tennessee anyway, we only have, one abortion clinic?
No, we have 9 clinics in Tennessee. And we have one in Bristol, one in Elizabethton, 2 in Knoxville, 2 in Nashville, 3 in Memphis. Is that add up to 9? I think so. Adds up to 9. And at least half of those are not licensed and are not inspected. But even those that are licensed, we recently had the report from the Tennessee Health Department. Though there is a center that is licensed and does allow themselves open to inspection, and yet at the end of last year, they got 57 pages of areas of serious concern from their health inspection.
Now, in Mississippi, they tried to legislate abortion clinics out of existence by attaching a requirement to have hospital privileges. But I think that was struck down, if I'm not. So how is Tennessee...
Well, that's true. That was struck down in Mississippi, and just over the last couple of weeks, why Louisiana and Texas also had a judge strike down that request to have hospitals available within a certain mileage distance to the abortion clinic. But put yourself in the place of the woman who is on the table having an abortion, and if there is any difficulty, I tell you, if that were my daughter or someone I knew, I would want them to have a hospital available. So none of these policies are really offensive or an undue burden. If women, one of the objections is, well, we can't impose a policy that's going to require an abortion clinic to have hospital affiliation within a 30 to 50 mile radius. Well, have we forgotten that expectant women are traveling much further than that to come and get an abortion? So what is the argument with making a provision that's perhaps going to save their life?
The concern then, what I heard you say, correct me if I'm wrong, is the decision, which would be Planned Parenthood of Middle Tennessee v. Sundquist in 2000, that expanded the right to privacy due process clause, 14th Amendment. Roe v. Wade was based on that, and you're saying that decision in Tennessee case law has expanded the rights in Tennessee broader than intended in Roe v. Wade. Is that
that is correct? That is correct. Yeah, that was the case that they were hearing, and the four of the 5 judges expanded the privilege of the privacy right to include a right to abortion, which is broader than the Roe versus Wade. There was one dissenting vote, and that was Judge Mickey Barker.
That was a 4-1 ruling.
Yeah, that was a 4-1 ruling. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you have another question, Angela?
That's I just wanted to clarify and make sure everybody understood
Okay.
the history of that.
Well, Kevin, would you tell us how the amendment got on the ballot
Certainly.
in the first place? Because in Tennessee we take a different approach to constitutional amendments
That
than
is
most
correct.
states.
It's been actually in the works since before I was elected in 2006. One of the very first things I learned about, thanks to Barbara and others in Bradley County, was SJR 127, is what we called it, Senate Joint Resolution 127, which would reverse this effect of the Supreme Court, Tennessee Supreme Court, in 2000. And it's taken better than 9 years to get this through the House, through the Senate. It must pass in each chamber. Remember, the Republicans were not in the majority in 2006. We were almost in the majority in 2008. We truly claimed majority status in 2010, and then, of course, retained that in 2012. So it takes full passage in the House, full passage in the Senate, on a couple of different readings, and then it comes to the November ballot, and we missed the last couple of Novembers because of the timing within the chambers. So finally, it's coming in November of 2014, no longer being referred to as SJR 127. It is now Amendment 1. And as Barbara so eloquently stated, it was written, former Senator Dave Fowler, lives in Chattanooga, law expert, crafted this language so that it would combat and reverse, and as Barbara said, neutralize the rulings from the Tennessee Supreme Court in case we are challenged in the courts. Couple of misconceptions. There are people that think voting yes on one will stop abortion the next day. If the elections are on November 4, then November 5, there will be no more abortion in Tennessee. That is a dream and that is a desire, but that is not the outcome of voting yes on Amendment 1. Voting yes on Amendment 1 clearly says it will give the ability to the elected senators and representatives that Tennesseans, 7 million Tennesseans have elected, to speak for them. That's what the true definition of represent is. We represent our constituents like Barbara, like Miss Minor, like Captain Davis. We take those to Nashville. What we are told is people don't like Tennessee being more liberal and our Constitution being more liberal than the U.S. Constitution. It's actually shocking that we have become an abortion destination. We are being sought out by other states who want to have better and freer abortions to model their laws after Tennessee laws. Shocking that conservative southern Tennessee has that reputation nationally. So November 5th, Lord willing this passes, vote yes on one, we will have the ability to then immediately, and I would predict, David, January 12th, I think is the Tuesday we go back, I would say prior to the 12th, there will be legislation filed that will begin the reversal, begin the inspection, mandatory inspections, begin mandatory licensing. Just think, to get your teeth whitened, to get your hair cut, to get your nails polished, you must have licensure and inspection. To get an abortion, it is not required. Now that is absolutely incredible and incredulous, and that's what this amendment goes towards.
So you're expecting that with the Republican-controlled majority in both houses, a supermajority in the Senate.
That's correct.
Right?
Can I make a statement on that?
Sure.
Because this House bill, this Senate bill that has become Amendment 1 is a bipartisan, has been a bipartisan agreement. So we are favored, for those of us who are conservative, to have a Republican representation in Nashville currently. But let's not look at it as only a Republican. This is a bipartisan action. And for that reason, we can speak to both sides of the aisle.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you brought that out.
It's a very good point. Thank you, Barbara.
It is.
I have one more another question in here.
Is it a minor question?
It is a minor question. That's a good joke. Never heard that one, Sir Kevin. But there's I've heard some people question taxpayer funding. Is that addressed anywhere in the language, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Let's see. Actually, it's in the first sentence. The amendment reads, and it says, nothing in this Constitution secures or protects a right to abortion or requires the funding of an abortion. Right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we pay for all abortions that are rape, incest, or the risk to the mother's life. But when you start designating rights, handing out rights on certain issues, what happens? We start paying for those rights because it's my right and I'm entitled to this. So you're going to pay for it. So this is not something that should be surprising. We are not currently paying for all abortions, but that is always the possibility if we consider this to be a right. And then take it a step further. If we have over a fourth of the women coming from out of state, then we, as our taxpayers' money in Tennessee, are paying for Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, Carolinas, and so on and so on and so on. So that is written in the amendment. It's in the first sentence of the amendment.
It's a great explanation, Barbara. Basically, Ms. Miner, these changes to our law were challenged in the courts. These decisions by the Tennessee Supreme Court in September of 2000 had nothing to do with a ballot initiative, had nothing to do with an election. These were 5 individuals with black robes who made a very dark decision, and that is to change the way the law is interpreted. We call it legislating from the bench. We don't like that. When those challenges were brought before the court and they were ruled in favor of the challenge, you can see it. It's Planned Parenthood versus Sundquist. ACLU was involved. When those organizations brought the challenges, they won in court. The reason that this taxpayer language was included in Amendment 1 is we expect the next challenge, they challenge the right to have an abortion, that there is an inherent right, and they won that challenge. Mm-hmm. We expect the next court challenge to be, if we have a right to an abortion in Tennessee, then we don't have to pay for it. It is a right, not a privilege. Mm-hmm. And we expect that, so we went ahead and wrote that language. Dave Fowler did a great job crafting this language so that, Lord willing, it passes. And we're asking every church, every organization, everyone to make sure people realize if you vote in the governor's race and don't vote on this amendment, it's as if you're voting against it. Mm-hmm. Because every vote cast for the governor, whichever governor's candidate you vote for, every vote cast goes towards the percentage of votes needed to pass this amendment.
50% plus 1, correct?
Plus
right.
1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So if it passes, will this settle the abortion argument in Tennessee?
I don't use the word settle. If this passes, this will open the door for us to reverse what was done against us. My grandmother used to sing a song, "Take back what the devil stole from me." That's what this amendment does.
That's a good one, yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I haven't seen a recent poll, but a poll done by Vanderbilt University in May, I think, showed, 63% opposed Amendment 1. Have things changed since then?
I had a conference call a week ago, and they talked about a recent poll that shows now we're in favor of at 51%, which is nothing to hang our hat on. I mentioned the statewide campaign called Yes on One. It is getting funding through $5, $10 gifts. We do have T-shirts like I'm wearing today available for sale for $15. Go on the website yesonone.org and purchase any merchandise, because every penny goes into media outreach. And why are we doing this? Because we have a strong opposition. In the very beginning, back in May, 5 newspapers across the state of Tennessee had a full-page ad, some of you might have seen it, of the by the opposition. It was not a very flattering portrayal at all. But they are funded through Planned Parenthood, ACLU, and then we have a new coalition called Health and Rights of Tennessee, and they're getting a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars from other states, because a lot of states are looking at how Tennessee is going to react to this amendment. And just like Kevin mentioned, this is going to turn the tide as far as the ability to put regulations into abortion practices, but not it does not have the ability to ban or limit or withhold abortion from any expectant mother. That's constitution, that's federal law, and no state constitution can override federal law. So one of the big points of the opposition is saying that, like Kevin said, they're going to limit or no longer have abortions. One of the things that is problematic from observing the low number of voters in the primary that we just got over, we have a lot of individuals who are anxious to go to the polls to vote for that person that they are comfortable with and that they know. They are going to go to the polls in November, and after they select those individuals, then they're going to be faced with 4 amendments. And it's like the child in the math class, when you can do the easy math, but then you get those story problems. And boy, how we hated those story problems because we had to think a little bit harder. And that's what these amendments are going to look like to a lot of people that go to the votes. And they're not going to vote. They're going to think, well, I'll let that person go ahead and handle that. Or they're going to see the word abortion, and they're going to say, well, I'm not for abortion, so I'm going to check no. It's just the opposite that we need. We need yes votes on this. And Kevin has said multiple times this morning that it's not the majority does not win the amendment, does not get it passed. It's got to be 50% plus 1 of every vote that is cast for the governor's race to make this amendment pass. So we need, if you don't vote for anything else, vote yes on one.
Well, go ahead.
I was going
Angela.
to say, Barbara, if folks want to get involved with Yes on One, what types of activities and outreach things do you have going here in Bradley County?
Okay. This afternoon, I'm going to pick up 1,000 yard signs. They are not meant to be housed in my garage. They got to get out in yards. So
I'll take one. I'll take 2.
Hence the name, yard sign.
200.
You give me as many as you want. I'll pass them out.
Okay, we had how many listeners witness that?
Right, we heard it.
But seriously, I do have, and I will get signs to you, we have 1,000 yard signs. That is how we're going to get this message spread. When they see yes on one, people are going to begin to ask. We have had denominations, several denominations like the Church of God, the Baptist, the Lutheran, and the Church of the Nazarene have written resolutions to asking their pastors to ask their congregation to vigorously support Amendment 1. So we have to get talking about Amendment 1 out in our congregations. And anyone can contact me. Through your service
station. Mm-hmm.
would be fine.
Oh, well, I expected you to keep talking, but that's all right. When you referred to the newspaper ads, the opposition referred to it as the Tennessee Taliban amendment. So it wasn't very flattering to anybody.
Very, very dangerous language for them to choose at this time in our world.
Yes.
Very disappointing.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought out the about voting, because if you do nothing else as an American citizen, you should vote.
Vote, and vote again.
Regardless of your political affiliation or your philosophy or whatever it is that you believe, you should go out and vote. And I don't want us to get off track, but Ferguson, Missouri is a prime example of a community that did not vote. It's a majority black community, and all of the public officials, the majority are white. and the majority of the police department, fire department are all white. So if you don't want that kind of life in your community, if you want it to be the way that you want it to be, the only way that can happen is through voting.
Well, gosh, rumor has it that some years ago, women actually marched to get a right to vote.
In Tennessee.
How about that?
That referendum, that law was passed. We were the final state to pass that referendum.
Is that right? Well,
The right to vote for women was passed and created by the vote of the Tennessee.
That's...
And I believe in March, the Tennessee Society of the Sons of the American Revolution is going to go mark the grave of the legislator who passed the deciding
That's
vote.
right.
Oh,
The
how
War of the
amazing.
Roses.
How
But that's another
wonderful.
radio show.
Yes, it is.
But it all,
It's all interconnected.
it all is interconnected, yeah. And we can even go deeper than that if we'd want to, but that's another radio show.
Yeah. So, Kevin, we didn't really get around to the other amendments, but the other amendment that I think we should at least touch on for the next 15 minutes is judicial selection.
Sure. Which is Amendment number 2.
Yes.
Vote on Amendment number 2. So that's a great segue. Ironically, both Amendment 1 and Amendment 2 have a judicial stance to them. We are voting on and changing the way we select the judges. Now remember, the vote on Amendment 1 was brought to us, like a commercial, brought to us by the Tennessee Supreme Court. It was how those judges voted and the way that they believe changed the way abortion is dealt with in Tennessee. So if, like you just so eloquently said, Captain Davis, if you don't like the way things are going, change the way and change the people that you are electing to office. Amendment number 2 would largely constitutionalize the state's current way that we select judges, but it would dismantle currently the Judicial Nominating Committee. Right now, we do have a Judicial Nominating Committee. They present names to the governor. But the legislature, again, segueing back to Amendment 1, those people that you elect, senators and state reps, like myself, we don't have a say in this process. You elect us to represent your wants and wishes, and we believe we can clearly articulate what it is that the three of you in this room want me to vote on as it pertains to a judge, whether that's at the highest level or at a local level. So I do believe that it is important that we talk about, in addition to Amendment 1, Amendment number 2, right now, that's the number one question I get. People understand the governor's race. They know basically who they're going to vote for. I'm thankful a lot of people voted for me in my office, for other colleagues in the House and Senate. Senator Bell is on this year's ballot. So, you've got those commonly referred to elections. You see the signs, like Barbara's going to be putting out signs for yes on one. What they don't see are those 2 or 3 or 4 pages of judges, the last couple of pages on this last ballot, for instance. So it's important that people understand Amendment 2 and that they vote for it, because, like you said, David, it does matter. I just got a text. I'm very grateful that we've got some county commissioners that are listening this morning. Commissioner Blake reminds me that the last day to register to vote is October 6th, Captain Davis. So we've got some time. If you're not registered to vote, by all means, get registered, and then take some time to take a look at these ballot initiatives, take a look at these amendments. I think Amendment number 2, Amendment number 3, I know it's getting very close on the time, but we've got to see if we can't hit some of these. Amendment number 3 is the income tax amendment. Again, since I have been in office, we have talked about, voted about, argued about state income tax. Tennesseans don't want to pay state income tax.
How does that keep coming up?
Well, we are a tax revenue dependent state. The tax that you pay on Scotty Mayfield's milk and the tax that you pay on every gallon of gas that you pump into your car, unless you have an electric car, all the taxes on everything that you buy, a portion of that comes to Nashville. A portion of it stays here in the city of Cleveland. A portion stays in the county of Bradley, but another very large portion of it goes to the city of Nashville to run our state government. And it keeps coming up, David, because tax revenues continue to drop. You've seen that in the news. Franchise and excise tax was down last year. We had to make additional cuts. Governor Haslam had a great plan for his budget, but not enough money came in. Well, one way to get more money would be to tax Tennesseans on a state income tax. All the states around us have it. There's a lot of pressure to do it. As for me and my house, as for my neighbors and the people that vote for me, they tell me 100% unequivocally, we don't want state income tax.
Well, I know I moved here because Tennessee doesn't have a state income tax.
We became the number one state in the nation. We've now exceeded Arizona and Florida. We are the number one state for retirement now in the nation, and it has a lot to do with our no income tax. It has a lot to do with our the way we redid and retooled the estate tax, the death tax. So we are making some good choices. We would hate to be going 10 steps forward, have this income tax come up, and we go 25 steps back.
So what's the alternative to offsetting the revenue that you're losing?
Well, the easiest answer, David, is fewer services, and that's a difficult thing to talk about. That's another radio show. But the easiest way to reduce the amount of money we need to come in is to reduce the amount of money we have going out, and that has directly affected those Sethra buses that run around town, people that get family services. There's a plethora of ways that we could cut, but everyone agrees and everyone wants to vote for cuts unless it affects me. And there are a great many of my friends and neighbors who desperately need the help that they're getting, and that's a tough. And we're either going to have to make some tough decisions, or we're going to have to find higher taxes somewhere, whether that's a gas tax or increase on food tax, which we just lowered. I don't want to go backwards. I want to keep lowering as much as we can.
We don't have a state income tax now, obviously. I've had folks ask, why do we need to amend the Constitution to block this? Is there a thought process behind that?
Well, the thought process is it will make it permanent. It will make it it will make it yay and amen. You can't change it. As I talked to you about SGR 127, the vote yes on one.
Yes.
We've been talking about that since I got here in 2006 in the State House. It takes years and years and years to even get it to this referendum status. This will forever and ever and ever be in the Constitution that Tennesseans, the volunteer state, they don't want state income tax.
I see you have a bit of history with the Hall income tax. Would you like to tell us a little about what that is, first of all?
You know, and yes, we have some very successful Bradley Countyans who do very well, and that's what America's all about. That's what the freedom to have your own business, free enterprise, to be successful, and these men and women work for decades, build their company, sell it, sell off their stock, sell off their dividends, and there is a trigger. There is a point at which a certain level of dividends, a certain level of income will be taxed.
That is the Hall income tax.
It is called the Hall income tax. Trust me. Whenever I send out an email that or statement from my office that says we're a no income tax state, I always get responses from those who pay Hall income tax. Yes. I am proud to say when I first got elected, I was told emphatically, we need to cut out the Hall income tax. I've even gotten emails that blamed me for it. Thankfully, it was passed in 1931, long before I got there. Mm-hmm. It's been on the books for decades. And we are actually reducing it. We actually changed the equation twice in the last 2 sessions to make it a little bit less injurious on my friends that qualify for that. I do have a caveat. If you qualify, if you know what hall income tax is, you're doing very well, and I'm grateful that you live in my district.
Yeah, so you've actually sponsored a couple of bills to reduce the rate.
I actually have,
You have.
because my constituents, again, there's that representation, have absolutely said to me, in my conversation with Governor Haslam, very direct, Governor Haslam, we've got to do something to get rid of this. He said, Kevin, there's no family in Tennessee more than my family that wants to get rid of this tax. He understands it. He gets it. The problem is what we talked about with income tax. What are we going to fill that hole with? Right now, it's about 180 million, 179 million and some change.
Okay.
That's a lot of money. And guess what I said a minute ago? Local governments, City of Cleveland, County of Bradley, will be immediately affected because a large portion of that hall income tax comes right here to Bradley County. And Gary and my friend Tom are both saying, so what are you going to do? So the bill that we sponsored, the bill that I supported, had a 4-year moratorium. Locally, you wouldn't feel it for 4 years. It would put our local governments on notice that if we don't do something in 4 years, we're going to now feel this. I do think it's a very important topic to talk about, and we are going to be talking about it immediately upon our return in January.
You
Great.
anticipated my difficult question. What is the fiscal impact
Yeah.
of reducing the hall
Yeah,
to
it-
zero, which is
well,
was
yeah,
part of your
it-
bill?
the
Just
fiscal
eliminate by 2016
The
thereafter.
fiscal impact is $180 million.
Okay, right.
And,
Ouch,
and-
right?
Yeah, and we've got to find that. And which leads to the Fourth Amendment, which is the ability for organizations who are currently not on the list to have an annual event. The word veterans is in this amendment. It is a veterans-based amendment. There are some organizations that want to have events to raise money that currently feel that they are not able to, that doesn't have the freedom to do that right now. So that's it's a very important topic of conversation.
Well, what prohibits them if they're 501c19? That would be a veterans nonprofit.
That's correct.
Or-
That's correct.
Do they just lack that federal designation, or what?
No,
what is
the organizations?
impeding them?
The organizations have the correct designation. It is the way we so strictly crafted the constitutional amendment in 2004
For lotteries.
For lottery.
I see.
So what we're doing again, as Barbara talked about earlier, we have to go back in and meticulously refine and retune that wording. So it was very carefully written. Senator Rusty Crowe was the sponsor of this and has been talking about this for many, many years, Senator Bunch tells me. And he was the one that got this actually pushed to the referendum status.
So right now, the only it's limited to 501c3s. So it's almost any charitable organization except the veterans organization can have this annual event. Then what does that allow? It doesn't allow poker and games of chance and stuff. But
that is correct. It would not. It simply, as Ms. Miner indicated, it adds the 501c19, which is currently not listed, and they still have to get permission. They still have to come before the state and request permission for these events. But you're right. It's not gonna allow poker night at the local VFW. What it's gonna allow. We're not passing gambling in the state of Tennessee. It's going to allow these organizations to have a fair and equitable chance to raise some money, and we don't want to stand in the way of that. But we do want to continue to have some good measurement of inspection. I think would be a good word.
Well,
speaking of veterans, David, before I don't know if this is a good segue or not, but I've got something for you.
Oh, okay.
I wish this were television. I've called you Captain Davis, I think, from the very first time I met you.
I think so.
In honoring of your service to our U.S. Navy, and we appreciate your service. But David, you've been a friend to our community from the day you got here, from the banner to the city of Cleveland, and now your radio show debut. You'll be Rush Limbaugh before I know it. and I've called you Captain Davis, but now I actually have to change your title. It says, State of Tennessee by Governor Bill Haslam, on behalf of the people of Tennessee, to the Honorable David E. Davis, whereas special trust and confidence in your patriotism, valor, and fidelity, I do hereby present and constitute and appoint you Colonel Aide de Camp to the rank and such as this date to hold the office under the conditions prescribed by law. Governor Bill Haslam, Colonel David Davis.
Well,
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen,
well, Kevin, it's
suitable for framing.
It's the wrong branch of service, but I accept it. My goodness, that's wonderful.
Well, I wanted to do something to honor your years of service to our community,
How special.
and we're very grateful to you, David, for all that you've done, and your beautiful wife, Carmen.
And well, that's just so very nice. I know you've been carrying that around
I
since
have. I've been-
October of last year.
You retired and went to the beach or something. I'm not
Yeah.
sure where.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened.
And I'm fixing to go back to the beach this afternoon.
Well,
so
get that framed before you go.
So we got it just in time.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, we've had with us our guest Barbara Gilbert with Vote Yes on 1, and State Representative Kevin Brooks, who represents the 24th district,
right.
which is Cleveland pretty much.
It is the city of Cleveland, and then the south end of Bradley County, McDonald, Prospect, Hopewell, all my friends down there on the south end of the county where I live.
And I hope you'll come back, and the next time I hope you'll bring State Representative Dan Howe, who's been a representative for about 48 hours. And,
I promise that I will. I promise that I will.
and I wish you good luck on your endeavors.
Thank you, David.
And I would like to say I've enjoyed speaking with both of you. This is our first time to meet, and I would welcome you back at any point.
It's been
Thank you,
our
Ms. Minor.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be asked to come by.
Okay, well, I think that'll wrap us up for this hour. We have Iris Ray and Reverend Kay Horner coming up with us next to talk about Cry Out America, that comes up next week on September 11th. So, and then following that, we have State Democratic Committeeman Jim Bilbo and State Democratic Committee woman Sally Love, who will be talking about the same for amendments between 10 and 11. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Thing with a bag of cookies. Then come on over to the Village Bake Shop. Family operated since 1961. The Village Bake Shop is your first and last stop for fresh baked goods that will feed your sweet tooth. The Village Bake Shop located at the Village Green Town Center. The phone number here is 423-476-5179. See you soon.
Are you looking for the best beer and cigarette prices in Bradley County? Well, look no further than Tom's Fuel Mart. That's right, look for the red and yellow signs. 25 feet from the street, 4 locations in Cleveland to serve you. At Tom's Fuel Mart number 4, that's right there near the Cleveland Speedway. You get the best homemade biscuits, sandwiches, and that includes the best fried bologna sandwiches in town. Just ask the Matador. That's right, Tom's Fuel and Mart, where you can find 100% gasoline. That means no ethanol, folks, for your lawnmowers and